Hello and welcome to our March virtual opening. My name is Emma Wilson. I'm the director at the Portland Art Gallery, and we're just delighted that you could join us. This month's feature artists are Scott Bowe, Alan Bunker, Rick Hamilton, and Willa Vennema, and you'll hear a few remarks from them in a couple of moments. A few thank yous first. I'd like to thank our clients for near and far. It has been an exciting month where we've been shipping work. It's so fun to go to UPS with work that's going to England or to Chicago or to anywhere around the country. It's really so nice to stay in touch with you and stay connected through the arts. And thank you to our artists who continue to just inspire and create works that help us to stay connected and feel good every day. So March is here. Spring is coming. I swear it is. And that's really the energy that the gallery at 154 Middle. That's the energy that's happening there right now with all of the works that are hanging. So Scott and Alan and Rick and Willa and all of our artists just created inviting and engaging and beautiful works for you to enjoy. And don't forget that March 13th we are setting our clocks ahead. So just a little side note there. So now I'd like to go ahead and introduce our artists. So I'd like to start with artist Scott Bowe. Scott, raised in Connecticut and Maine. I guess he moved to Maine as a teenager, right? And then
That's
went
right.
out to California and became a fancy actor and model and did all those
Yes,
good things.
all
Um,
all the glamour. Yep,
that's
just
right.
trying
And
to keep the
now
glamour going.
now the canvas is your open stage, right? So his your abstract expressionist style includes vivid use of color and strong gestural strokes, and so just brings those canvases to life. So please join me in welcoming artist Scott Bowe.
Thank you. Give you a couple words about the pieces for the show. Great. The work I created. This was really. I really gave this a lot of thought about what I was going to do for this show, and the work I created are very similar of a monochromatic style, using different shades of one color uh, for each painting that I did. I did use a few iridescent colors like pearl and silver to create more dimension and shadows and stuff like that. So it's not really monochromatic in the pure sense of the word, but for these pieces, my intentions were to create pieces that were monochrome esque paintings that convey um, a dramatic flair, really, of simplicity, peacefulness, and purity. It's as simple as that. Yeah, it's a little different than a lot of my other work. It's not. It's to me at least. It's more calming.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. I like how they came out.
They
Yeah.
look fantastic. Yeah, we're already getting people noticing them right when they come into the gallery space. Yeah. And it's interesting how you use the word, the sort of the simplicity and the peacefulness, because that really does come through when you're standing with the pieces. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to add to that, Scott, or you feel like that?
Um, no, I think that's it.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks. All right. And now I'd like to introduce artist Alan Bunker. Hi, Alan.
Hi.
Hi. Alan has had a long career in construction and a long connection to Maine, especially in the Boothbay Harbor area. Alan describes his paintings as landscape illusions, which is such the perfect term, it seems, to capture your landscapes, whether or not it's like the moodiness that goes with a stormy day or an impending storm on the Maine coastline, or that crystal clear, pristine coastline that we also know and love. Your works really communicate that for our viewers and just are so beautiful. So, with that, please join me in welcoming artist Alan Bunker.
Thank you, Emma. You're too kind. Um, Yes, landscape illusions. I came up with that idea, that name, about probably 10 years ago, anyway, or probably even more than that. But you're right. It's what I try to do. I want them to be, I want you to be able to see that it's a landscape, but I don't want you to just, brush it off as another landscape. Um, for probably as long as I've named these landscape illusions, as long as I've been painting, maybe even, I've tried to go more abstract, but it's difficult. I I can't just go abstract because it always turns into a landscape. But with this collection, there's a few paintings that I think I got away with it. I think I actually broke through where it's definitely abstract, and yet you can still kind of tell it's a landscape. So that's my goal, is to go more towards abstract, and yet have it still be you can tell it's a landscape. So um, I did, I don't know, like Scott said, I'm happy with the work this time.
Hmm.
That's not always the case,
Yeah,
but I feel like I'm getting somewhere with this whole abstract thing, which is great for me as an artist.
right. And it's something that you definitely have, explored, and we've worked together for a long
Yeah.
time, and it's something that you always continue to touch back and explore. And so I can definitely see that in this show too. There's some pieces that they're abstract, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, there is a little bit of a form there that sort of brings it back
Mm.
into.
Hmm.
But tell the story about the frames. This is the first time that we've had a lot of frame pieces by you.
Yeah. Well, Kevin had asked for frames this time. Some of them, I see how that goes. But my cousin, he's 75 years old, and he's an incredible person. Very, very outgoing and loud,
Uh-huh.
and you go to his yard, and he's a hoarder. I hope he's not listening to this, but he has in his yard this paths through piles of stacks of wood that he just collects it. He can't help himself. And his brother down in South Carolina cut down a tree on his yard and then milled it into like 2-inch slabs. And then my cousin, I'm not going to use his name in case he does hear this, but he I knew he had all this wood, and Kevin had asked for frames, so I said, well, I can make some frames out of this stuff. So I asked him what I went to his house, and we kind of looked at his piles of wood, and I selected some wood, and it's ash, and it's so his brother cut the tree down and cut it into slabs, and he milled it, and I cut it into the frames. So I hope you like them. They're
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, they're different. I left the knots in and things like that, so that the texture of the wood shows up,
Right. Yeah.
and that it kind of adds to the abstract too. I mean, if they were perfect, because I thought about
Hmm.
just doing frames like everybody does, and black or something like that. I used to do black frames on everything, but this, I liked them. They're kind of different, so
Yeah, they add to the story of the piece, as well.
yeah.
And as you comment, the texture sort of adds to that as well. So, yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. That's a great connection to have. So, so you better not share your secret too much about your cousin, because other people will be signing them up. Well, good. Well, thank you, Alan, and uh, for your remarks. So, anything else you want to add, or feeling good?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, now I'd like to introduce artist Rick Hamilton. So I'm struck by the fact that there's many of you, there's many careers amongst the four of you. Rick, Navy, farmer, machinist, salesperson, artist. You've got a wide range of a lot of experiences. That's wonderful. And so, but throughout all of these adventures and these careers, it sounds as though you'd stay connected to your creative spirit and your creative energy. And so influenced by a personal mentor that you met in Portland, and then also artists like Picasso and Modigliani and Basquiat. Now you're creating these pieces that just capture the imagination of people. That's what we hear so much in the gallery, whether or not, it's on the working waterfront or a dance contest or, taking a trek across the country in a VW bus or whatever it might be. Your images just connect with people and really bring them a lot of joy. So, with that, I'd like to introduce, please welcome artist Rick Hamilton.
Oh, thank you, Emma. That was great. I love to hear that. Yeah, I'm very happy with the work that I have in this current show. And I have this habit where I know a show is coming up and I purposefully wait till almost like the last minute to do the work. And I do think that kind of drove you guys crazy a little bit. But there's something about that pressure and that energy that I just really get off on. And it kind of takes my head out of the painting and it just lets me paint more just by feeling and my intuition. And I did, when I was thinking about the work before I started painting them, I had this idea that I wanted to be looser and freer and just rely on my use of color and maybe throw some abstract elements in as well. And I think that's the way the pieces look. And I think like for the majority of the work, it was all done maybe within the last week of bringing the work to the gallery. And Emma, as you remember, some of the work was even still wet when I brought it in.
Yeah, they handled it like.
But yeah, so I really loved doing it. I loved the pressure. That was almost a frantic week of painting, but it was just a lot of fun, and I enjoyed doing them.
That's wonderful. And there's a secret in each, or not secret, but there's something that's hidden within each of your paintings. And can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, there is something hidden. I hide a little black kitten in every painting, and which is slightly odd to me, considering I don't really even like cats. But it's something that I've done for maybe 6 years, and it's almost so. At the very end of each painting, I know when it's done. When I'll sign it and put the hidden kitty, and then I know the painting's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a little. What's the word for that? There's an Easter egg, I think it's called, that I put in every painting.
It's like the New Yorker Nina. Yeah. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
that's wonderful. Well, thank you. And I'm sure none of us understand that concept of, working well under pressure, but
Sure.
it's
Sure.
really, it is some people do function much better that way and others need more of that time in that process. And speaking of process, now I'd like to introduce artist Willa Vennema. When I think about sort of needing to take some time and the layering that is involved with the encaustic medium, which is Willa's chosen medium, where there's the layering of the beeswax and damar, am I pronouncing that correctly? Damar crystals and pigments and found materials in each of your pieces. Willa graduated with BA in art history and studio art from Oberlin, and then also BFA from Cooper Union. She has works in numerous private and corporate collections, and she shares her time between Swans Island, her beloved Swans Island, and her beloved Portland, Maine. Maine coastline is and its depth and its beauty are Willa's muse. And I really invite you to look closely with this body of work in particular. Look closely, invite you into seeing all the different layers that have gone into these pieces. Please join me in welcoming artist Willa Vennema.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to hear us artists give our remarks about the show that's up now at Portland Art Gallery. And thank you so much, Emma, for the nice introduction. I am in my Portland, Maine studio now because it's the winter months. But as she mentioned, I spend the summer and now some of the off season since I've retired from my preschool teaching job, which was my way of, earning a little money while making art for many years. So now I'm able to go up on the off seasons, and the island is near Katy National Park, but those of us that go to Swans Island feel like we have our own little Acadia right there on Swans Island. So I used to paint on plein air up there a lot, but then as I've gotten older, I mostly just wander around. We go on a boat. We go to a lot of uninhabited islands that are preserved by Maine Coast Heritage Trust. Love that organization. And I just soak up the beauty all summer long. And then when I'm back in the studio in Portland, I paint from memory and imagination, and occasionally I'll use a photograph to spark, to remind myself of something that I saw. So the work that's in the show now, they're all what I consider abstract landscapes. And I've been working on them all fall furiously, because for me, only having 4 or 5 months is enough pressure. I could never do it in a week. It's remarkable. So there's several different series that people that are able to see the show online or in person, they'll see. There's groups of paintings that have similar themes, and one of them, the centerpiece of the show, in my mind, is a large piece, the largest I've done for encaustic, because it's quite hard working large. I think it's 36 by 60. Is from a low tide scene that I was at a small cove. It was dusk and the tide was out, and there was just this amazing reflection on the water from the spruce trees on the shore. If anybody's ever seen a clam flat at low tide, you kind of see all the little ripples in the silt. And so the spruce reflecting onto that clam flat created this really dynamic dark and light shadow effect. And so starting even last year, I started the series trying to recreate that in the studio. And when you're working with encaustic, you have to be open to chance and happenstance. It's not a medium that's very easily controlled. So instead of, let's say, if I was working in oil or acrylic, I might try to actually paint that effect. But with encaustic, instead, you have to find other ways to mimic what you're trying to get at. And I brought some show and tell. This is a mesh wire, or not wire, plastic screen that comes in the bottom of your pizza boxes, at least here in Portland, to keep the pizza from getting soggy. So this is like an example of how I will just find something and think, what can I use that for in the studio? And what I found is if I lay it down, put the wax in, pull it up, then put a contrasting color where the plastic parts were, I can get an effect that I think mimics the look of either sun sparkle on the water or that low tide feel. So I use that a lot in some of my works. And there's just room for endless exploration with encaustic, because you can do so much with it. Like if you look behind me, I have a piece that I embedded lace in, and I have pieces that I use paper in, and another body of work from the show actually is from some abstract pieces that I had in my studio, and there are lots of little circle paper shapes, and I just decided to pull them out, and I chose a few that I felt I could part with, and I started experimenting, and I added a landscape element on top of what was already there. So the circle shapes to me became symbolic of seeds underground in the winter, or seeds coming to life in the spring, and then I added some tree element on top of that. So that's just an example of how versatile the medium is. So I hope people get a chance to see it in person, because you really do have to kind of get up close to get the most out of the texture that you can create, and seeing the luminosity of the layers. And I always like to say people are allowed to touch them if they want, because one of the benefits of encaustic is it's impervious to water, it's impervious to chemicals because of the wax medium. So, it's pretty hardy. as long as you don't melt it or freeze it.
Right, those are two things. I know it was quite striking to go to your studio and realize that that 36 by 60 panel, you basically had to spread it out on your floor and be able to work back and forth. It's very physical. The creation of the body of work is very, there's a real physical aspect to it,
Yes,
but
that's very true.
it is, yeah, it is beautiful. I'm struck by the fact that all four of you have touched on sort of this term abstract, not the term, but the use of and the inspiration and being drawn towards abstract work and sort of interpreting your own reality in your own way, which is really just exciting and inspiring. So, are there any other? Thank you, Willa, for your remarks and. Are there any sort of things that people thought of? They're like, dang, I wish I had said that, that they wanted to add.
I just wanted to say I feel so fortunate, and I'm being absolutely sincere to be showing with Rick and Alan and Willa and Kevin. Thank you so much, and Emma, and Portland Art Gallery, and all this amazing, just what we're doing right now. This is you win. I don't think there's a lot of people doing to the extent that you guys are doing in terms of promotion and getting people to uh, feel to know the artist, to really get a feeling for the artist, which will help that person be hopefully more attracted to their art. I just want to say thank you. So,
You're welcome, and thank you very much for your remarks. And I do think that is very important. We do believe that to be very important, that you all are unique and special and wonderful people, and to be able to share your stories is a true honor and a privilege. So thanks for that. Anybody else want to say anything, or we can wrap it up? So, all right, great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Rick and Willa and Scott and Alan, for joining us, and thank all of you at home for tuning in. We invite you to, I want a couple of announcements. Want to invite you to listen to our Radio Maine podcast hosted by Dr. Lisa Belisle. To Scott's point, this is a real opportunity to learn more about a particular artist or a member of our creative community. You can find those on any one of your preferred channels. Visit us at 154 Middle Street in the heart of the Old Port, 7 days a week, 10 to 5:30. You can find us online at www.portlandartgallery.com, as well as on Instagram at Portland Art Gallery. Thank you again for joining us. Be well, stay in touch, and take good care of each other.